BBC News, I'm John Shea. A senior Red Cross official has accused the world of turning its back on Afghanistan as its people face severe malnutrition. After a 6-day visit to the country, Dominic Stillhart, Operations Director for the ICRC, said countries should engage with Afghanistan despite the Taliban takeover and not let political considerations interfere with humanitarian action.
As winter sets in, the policies that were meant to avoid supporting those that are in power are now instead freezing out millions of Afghans of the very basic needs they require to survive.
Mr. Stillhart said the hunger of Afghan children and the anguish of their parents made him livid because the suffering was man-made. Detectives in the American state of Wisconsin are considering whether the driver of a car which ploughed into a Christmas parade was trying to flee another crime scene. 5 people were killed and 40 others injured. Barbara Platt-Usher is in the town of Waukesha.
2 officers have now identified the suspect, Daryl Brooks. He appears to have a lengthy criminal record. Online court documents show that a person with his name and birth date had been charged on several counts of recklessly endangering safety, and that he was released on bail on Friday. He's also posted a rap video on Twitter that seems to feature the red sports utility vehicle used in the hit and run. A motive is not yet clear, although U.S. media are reporting that it may be linked to an earlier altercation involving a knife.
Prosecutors in the trial of 3 white men charged over the killing of a black man in the US state of Georgia last year have begun their closing arguments in the case. All are accused of confronting and shooting dead 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery while he was out jogging in the city of Brunswick. They said he looked like a burglary suspect. In her closing argument, the prosecutor, Linda Dunikoski, said the defendants could not justify the killing.
None of the defendants saw Mr. Arbery commit any crime that day. They were detaining him for the police so that they could investigate and find the crime that he must have committed that day because what is he? He's running down the street. That's not the law, ladies and gentlemen. Not the law at all.
A United Nations expert on human rights says the US stands out among democracies for what he called its incomplete protection of minorities. Speaking after an official visit to the US, Fernand de Varenne said the right of minorities to vote in some states, notably Texas, was being diluted in favour of white Americans. In September, Texas adopted a new law which includes a ban on drive-through and 24-hour polling places and adds ID requirements for postal voting. Democrats and civil rights groups say the bill discourages voters from ethnic minorities as well as the elderly and disabled. World News from the BBC. The leaders of Belgium and the Netherlands have criticised violence seen in their countries over the weekend, linked to protests against coronavirus restrictions. The Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte said there had been 3 nights of pure violence perpetrated by idiots. He promised to prosecute those responsible. His Belgian counterpart, Alexander De Croo, called violent scenes at a large march in Brussels on Sunday absolutely unacceptable. 3 police officers were injured. Residents from a poor neighbourhood outside Rio de Janeiro in Brazil have found 8 bodies in a swamp with what they say are signs of torture. A witness said it had been a massacre. The authorities launched a big operation in the area at the weekend after a police officer was found dead on Saturday night, allegedly shot by drug traffickers. Israel has agreed a deal with Jordan in which it would swap water for solar power. The memorandum of understanding that the 2 countries have signed would see a solar power plant built in Jordan that would generate electricity for Israel, as well as power a desalination plant in Israel that would send much-needed water to Jordan. The Association of Tennis Professionals has attempted to settle a long-running controversy by issuing strict new guidelines regulating toilet breaks. These will now be limited to 3 minutes. Players have regularly been accused of using bathroom breaks as tactical weapons at crucial junctures in matches. Here's our tennis correspondent Russell Fuller.
The clock will start when a player reaches the bathroom door, and time violations will be enforced if anyone spends too long inside. Bathroom breaks will only be permitted at the end of a set and limited to 1 per match, although players will be entitled to an additional 2-minute break to change sweaty clothing. The bathroom antics of the Greek player Stefanos Tsitsipas riled the former world number 1 Andy Murray during their match at this year's US Open, but lengthy breaks to clear a player's mind have been common in the sport for many years.
And that's the latest BBC World News.